Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, if you've been feeling a little bit warmer than normal, it's because the Earth's temperature is rising. Now, Katan, we're going to begin our broadcast here by looking at the unusual and disturbing changes that we see in our weather taking place all over the world.
In addition to that, Jeff, we also have some disturbing events taking place within our society.
Now, reports coming out this week showing that the Earth is getting hotter. 2012 goes down as the 9th warmest year on record. Now, the average temperature worldwide was 58 degrees, which is 1 full degree above the 20th century average. Now, that might not sound like it's much, but just 1 degree can affect the weather and the sea ice.
Interesting. Huntington Beach in Southern California is noticing the difference 1 degree can make. The recent rising sea levels have pushed the tides higher and further inland. Connie Boardman is a college biology professor and mayor of Huntington Beach. She said, along the Southern California coast, we've experienced an 8-inch rise in sea level already, 8 inches. It's nothing we can continue to deny, she said.
Now, according to the U.S. government forecast, global sea levels are expected to rise 1 to 4 feet by the year 2100. Now, with nearly 5 million Americans living within 4 feet of the current high tide level, the mayor of Huntington Beach says the time to act is now. Huntington Beach is making plans to put in more water pumps and drainage.
Now, England has also been experiencing the effects of our changing atmosphere. The average rainfall in the UK is 6.5 inches above normal. Bob Ward, a climatologist from the London School of Economics, says a warm atmosphere actually holds more water, and the global temperatures increased about 0.7 degrees Celsius in the last 100 years, and that means that the atmosphere is holding about 4% more moisture than usual.
Now, in 2012, there was 800 homes and businesses flooded, and whole farms actually disappeared underneath the water. Amazing. Now, and just to give everyone an idea of just how much rain fell in the UK, now north of London, a seal swam in from the sea across the flooded fields and was last seen 50 miles inland, still swimming.
Wow, that's an amazing feat, very far. Continuing with the strange weather patterns, Jackson, Mississippi, which is deep in the south, got nearly 2 inches of snow from a recent storm. Talk about a turn of events. The storm continued north overnight, making driving treacherous in Knoxville, Tennessee. In Virginia, state police received 700 calls reporting weather-related crashes.
But as the South was experiencing the cold, the North is still too warm. The rising of the ocean temperatures is killing off the livelihood of the iconic New England fishermen. 2 years ago, they hauled in 14 million pounds of shrimp, but this year they will only catch a tenth of that. Now, the disappearance of shrimp and lobster means that their livelihood is also disappearing.
That's right. A third-generation fisherman, Ronald Pinkham, has been up before dawn setting traps for nearly 60 years. For years, he's caught lobster in spring, summer, and fall, and shrimp each winter when lobsters move offshore. But that annual cycle is changing. The shrimp season, which used to last months, now could be just 1 day. Ronald Pinkham said for the local economy, that means a lot. The cold water shrimp population has dropped by 20 million pounds since 2009.
Now, researcher Don Perkins studies these waters that are off the northeastern coast and had this to say. He said, this past year is one of the warmest years we've had here. The bottom temperature here in the Gulf of Maine, where the shrimp are caught, have been 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And that's a huge increase in temperature in the marine environment.
Right. Patrick Kelleher, the commissioner of the Maine Department of Marine Resources, was asked how he would characterize the current shrimp stocks off the coast of Maine. He said, in critical condition, and he reiterated critical condition. Now, his job is to protect the fishery, so he has recently limited the shrimp catch to less than 1.5 million pounds. Now, of course, that's down 72% from last year. And he said it takes a while for this population to catch back up, and it's not a rosy picture at all. It's very difficult for the managers, but it's a hell of a lot more difficult for the fishermen. They're suffering a lot more than the managers.
That's their livelihood disappearing.
That's right.
Now, from the loss of livelihood to the loss of life, Planned Parenthood is reportedly performing a record high number of abortions. Planned Parenthood reported receiving over $500 million in taxpayer money during the last fiscal year.
Right. Pro-life advocates are sounding the alarm, saying we should not be borrowing more money to pay for more abortions. Now, almost immediately after the 113th Congress was sworn in, pro-life lawmakers reintroduced legislation that would block family planning funding that would go to any group that would not certify that it doesn't perform abortions or refer clients elsewhere to get them.
Planned Parenthood says that 90% of its services are preventative. Their records show that it has performed over 1 million abortions at a consistent annual rate, but during the same time there has been a 30% drop in cancer screenings and an 11% drop in contraceptive services.
Kind of late for that. A little further east, Rome to be exact, Pope Benedict has used his yearly State of the World address to call for a stop to violence in Syria. Now, the Pope told 180 diplomats that they must tell their governments that they must do everything possible to stop the slaughter. These remarks come one day after a defiant speech from Syria's president.
In his speech, he called on Syria to end the slaughter and the suffering among its civilian population, as well as his renewed appeal for a ceasefire and the inauguration of constructive dialogue aimed at putting an end to the conflict, which will know no victors but only vanquished if it continues, leaving behind it nothing but a field of ruins, he said.
Sounds like he's broadcasting plans for the desolation of a future country. Now, a little closer to home in Webster, New York, police are learning more about what led to the ambush of 4 firemen responding to a house fire. A memorial outside the firehouse for Michael Ciparini and Thomas Kachufka, who were shot by a man, William Spangler, who set the fire that they were responding to. Now, Mr. Spangler, of course, he later killed himself as well.
Police chief said that Spangler left a rambling note stating that he wanted to see how much of the neighborhood that he could burn down. And, in his words here, do what I like best, killing people. Now, another body was found inside the home, possibly his sister. 3 weapons were found in his home, including a semi-automatic Bushmaster .223 rifle. And, of course, that's the same make and caliber that was used in the Connecticut school shooting.
In India, they have been experiencing days of angry demonstration from the December 16th gang rape of a 23-year-old student in New Delhi. The attack was so vicious that the victim had to be moved to a hospital in Singapore, where she later died from her injuries. As her body was being readied for the flight back to India, police sealed off parts of the capital in New Delhi and braced for more angry demonstrations.
Thousands of Indians, most of them young and furious, poured into the streets to protest the gang rape and condemning the violence against women. They were also protesting against rape in general, which they say often goes unpunished in India, and if you can believe it, blame the women victims. Now, the Prime Minister of India tried to restore calm as he made a statement on national television in which he said, "I assure you that we will make all possible effort to ensure security and safety of women in this country," he said. Now, for our last report, we turn to YPN's Larry McGee, who has our story on the increasing level of aggression within our society. Larry, what are we seeing out there?
Violence, Jeff, and more mourning as many struggle to cope with the collapsing society where violence seems to be the every intent of men's hearts and minds. This week, 2 more senseless shootings, leaving multiple people injured and several in critical condition. The first is yet another school shooting. Thursday morning, a 16-year-old youth walked into Taft Union High School and began firing with a shotgun, injuring 2 students, and a teacher was hit with a pellet. Investigators say the young assailant walked up to the school's life science building, walked into his classroom, and fired between 2 to 5 rounds, critically injuring one 16-year-old student. Amazingly, at that point, the teacher, who was also slightly injured, was able to talk the young man out of the attack. The 16-year-old shooter relayed to the teacher that he didn't want to shoot him, but was instead looking for a student who wasn't present. Police say this is an indication that the young man had intended targets. Also this week, churchgoers are shocked and dismayed over a double shooting and stabbing incident in Gardendale, Texas. Terry Greer, the former pastor of the United Methodist Church of Decatur, Texas, has been implicated in the incident, but at present, he has not officially been charged. Police rushed to Mr. Greer's home on Country Meadow Drive after they received reports of gunshots. There, they reportedly found 2 female victims who had been shot and a male who had been stabbed. The man is being regarded as a suspect in the incident, and if he pulls through, police say he will be charged. Neighbors express shock, and police say their investigation is far from over. At the time of this report, one of the victims was listed as stable and the other in critical condition. Mr. Greer has been the pastor of the Gardendale Mount Vernon Methodist Church since moving over there from Decatur in July. A very short stint with an even more woeful end. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Katan, those shootings are becoming all too commonplace in our society today.
You're absolutely correct, Jeff. You know, confusion, murder, severe weather, all these things could have been turned around and prevented if mankind would have heeded the lone voice of one man that we've reported on in the past. That man is Yisrael Hawkins, who has time and time proven the every word of Yahweh to be 100% accurate. Now stop struggling in this confused world of darkness and seek the light at the house of Yahweh, the only place we found, and we know because we've reported on it, that's right on track with the inspired words in the Holy Scriptures. Now, if you haven't already ordered your copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter, you can do so by writing the House of Yahweh.
You can write the House of Yahweh at P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604, or you can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can also email them at info@yahweh.com or visit their website at www.yahweh.com. And for any calls outside the United States, please call the number that's on your screen.
Now continue to stay with us here because up next, Yisrael Hawkins. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for joining us.